It is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Zarna has been an organizer with Rising Tide Seattle and Earthship Seattle. She is a founding member of Women of Color Speak Out, a writer and a storyteller. She has published books about Hindu spirituality, self-examination, and cross-cultural understanding. She founded and leads the Seattle Bhakti Yoga group to explore the connections between spiritual awareness and direct action for real change. As a community organizer, she appears in the media as an activist for climate justice and social justice issues. Much of her activism stems from her cultural upbringing as an Indian daughter with a heritage of nonviolent direct action. Her work speaks directly to the principles of Unitarian Universalism. I present Zarna Joshi.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you so much for the welcome here. I would like to begin by paying my respects to the Duwamish people, upon whose land we are seated, upon whose land we are praying, upon whose land we are living. They safeguarded this land for over 12,000 years. And in just 200 years of colonization, we went from this land being a paradise to the brink of climate chaos. I would like to pay my respects to the congregation here and to this sanctuary. I would like to thank Anne Miller for inviting me here, and Beatrice for the service, and all of the musicians and performers who are here today. In my tradition, we do not speak anywhere without remembering and thanking our parents and our teachers, our gurus, and the divine. So I also do that here today. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. So Friday was Earth Day. We are in 2016. We are at a critical moment in history. It is very clear from all of the science, all of the reports, all of the evidence seen and witnessed by people all over this world, that we are on the brink of disaster. I say this not to frighten you all. I say this because it is reality. I say this because if we are to live spiritual lives, then that means we must seek the truth. It means we must work to create peace in our communities, in our families, in our environment. This last week, we hit 90 degrees in Seattle in the month of April for 3 days straight. It broke all records. For the last 2 years, we have been in drought in Washington State. The people in California have no water. They are coming up here because they have no water. But we have no water. It's called climate refugees. And it is happening not just in the West Coast, but it is happening all over the world. Those thousands of Syrians who are running from terrifying war are also running from famine. They're running from drought. These are climate refugees. The Guardian published a report where they said that the climate crisis has actually been caused by only 90 companies, 90 corporations. Those are the people who are responsible for climate change. But we are told by the media that it's our fault because we drive these cars. That's what we're told. The onus is put on the poor people, on the little people, on the people who have not created this system, the people who are trapped by this system. The onus is put on them. This is the corruption of the system that we live in. The Arctic is melting. And we thought that Antarctica was holding strong. And in this last year, reports have shown that in fact Antarctica is also melting at a rate unprecedented. There is devastation in the global south. And it is true that the worst effects of climate change will be felt in the global south by black and brown people, by poor people. And it is also true that those 90 companies that have caused climate change come from the global north. And it is also true that the people who have profited from those 90 companies live in the global north. This is also true. Because what we have to understand is that the climate crisis has been caused by 4 root causes. And they are capitalism, colonialism, racism, and patriarchy. Because these 4 causes lead us to believe that profit is more important than life. Controlling resources is more sacred than Mother Earth. To have power is more important than to have equality between races. That is what we have learned in our society. These are the roots of our society, and they are destructive roots. So how do we get out of it? How do we break free from these 4 root causes, from these 4 systems of oppression? How do we free ourselves? We've been told there's nothing we can do. We've been told it's inevitable. They've put us in this funk where we want to do something, but we don't know what to do, we don't know how to do it, and we're terrified to do anything. Because if we do something, what about our lifestyles? What about our jobs? What about our profit? That's what we've been indoctrinated into believing. And we are in this funk that is destroying us. So I'm going to tell you a story. It comes from ancient India. It comes from my tradition. And it speaks directly to the problems we are facing today. Long ago, there was a king. And he was a demon. He wasn't a demon because he had horns and a forked tail. No, he was human, just like us. He was a demon because he valued profit and power over love. His name was Hiranyakashipu. And I don't expect you all to pronounce that correctly first time round. His name was Hiranyakashipu. That means one who exploits wealth and women, capitalism and patriarchy. That was who Hiranyakashipu was. And the Hindu scriptures say he was a demon. Such greed is demonic because it destroys the foundations of society. It destroys the foundations of life. And because of his lust for power and his lust for profit, he destroyed nature. He destroyed nature. He attacked the waters. He attacked the sky. He attacked the land. He colonized people. He colonized them. He stole from them. He abused people. Capitalism, patriarchy, colonialism. And because of his giant ego that had led him to do all of these things, he said, "You will worship me. I am God." Not the God that you were worshipping before, by all of the different names you had for God. I am God. I am supreme. And in fact, my people are supreme in this world. Racism, capitalism, patriarchy, colonialism, racism. And he was a demon. And he caused havoc in the world. And because he wanted more power, he went off again on another campaign to gain even more power. And while he went off, his wife, Gayadu, was pregnant. And while he was gone, by accident, she met a sage. His wife, who was pregnant, met a sage. And that sage introduced her to the vibrations of peace, to the divine name. In my tradition, there are many, many names for the divine, because everyone experiences love in their own way. Everyone experiences peace in their own way. And so we all have different words for them, in different languages, with different expressions. And this sage introduced the vibration of the name Hari. And as she was pregnant, as her pregnancy developed, the child within her was absorbing the vibrations of that name, Hari. And when her son was born, it is said he spoke the name Hari, Hari, Hari. And when the sage learned that this son of this demon, spoke the name of the divine, he manifested divine vibrations upon his very birth, he named him Prahalad. Prahalad means the first rays of the sun. Hope. The first rays of light within society that might just save us. And as Prahlad grew, because of the vibrations he had absorbed before he was even born, he grew up a devotee. He grew up loving. He grew up feeling compassion. And when his father returned from his campaign to gain more power, he saw his son. And before he even had a chance to get to know his son, he said, "It's time for you to go off to school." And his mother said, "No, he's still very young. He's only 3 or 4 years old." And his father said, "No." He didn't listen to his wife, Prahlad's mother. The opinions of a woman were not important to him. Patriarchy. And he sent Prahlad off to school. But he was still a loving father. So he visited his son. And one day, when Prahlad was 5 years old, he went and visited his son and he said, "My son, what have you learned today?" And Prahlad said, "Father, today I learned that I must pray for protection from the 5 enemies." "The 5 enemies?" his father said. "Who are these 5 enemies?" And Prahlad said, "The 5 enemies are Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Irsha, Moh." lust, anger, greed, envy, and delusion. And what delusion? The delusion that I am my body and not a soul. Prahlad said, I must pray for protection from these 5 enemies. He hadn't actually learned that in this school. In this school, they were teaching him to worship his father as God. He hadn't actually learned that. He was manifesting spontaneously the teachings that he had learned while absorbing the vibrations of the divine. And he was repeating those teachings to his father. And his father said, well, if you want protection from these 5 enemies, you better pray to me. I'm in control of them. And Prahlad said, no. You are of this material world. Anyone who is of this material world cannot be in control of them. It is only the divine who can protect us from these 5 enemies. And it is by meditating upon that divine that we can gain protection within our minds and within our hearts and within our souls. And his father said, Prahlad, how dare you contradict me? I am God. Have they not been teaching you this? And Prahlad said, you are my father, but my divine father has taught me another truth. And Hiranyakashipu was furious. And he called his wife, Prahlad's mother, and he said, tell him what the truth is. And she said, okay. And she tried to explain to her son, pacify your father. Just agree with whatever he wants. Prahlad said, I can't. Mother, how can I accept what is not true? And Hiranyakashipu heard this, and he told Prahlad's teachers, teach him what the truth is. And before we come back, by the next visit, he must be worshipping me. And this divine that he keeps talking about, he must reject that name. And so the teachers tried. They were terrified. This is what happens when the state terrifies teachers, tries to control teachers. They will be forced to teach children untruths. And so the teachers tried. They tried beating it into him. They tried forcing it into him. But with every time they tried, he would teach them something new. He would reveal another truth. That control and power does not come from oppression. Love is true power, and love is within everyone. He would teach them this, and he would chant the name, the divine name with them. And slowly but surely, his own schoolmates began to agree with him. And when his father came back, his father said, Prahlad, are you worshipping me now the way you're supposed to? And Prahlad said, I worship you as my father, but I cannot worship you as God. And when Hiranyakashipu heard this, he thought, I cannot have my own son disobeying me in my own kingdom. I control everything here. I cannot have this seed of mine disobeying me. It will compromise my own control. And Hiranyakashipu sentenced his own son to death. When I was a child and I heard this story, I thought to myself, how could any father sentence their own child to death? But isn't that what we've done to our children with climate change? Isn't that what we've done to our grandchildren? Isn't that what we've allowed to happen to all life on this planet? It's not hard to destroy your own children when you hanker after wealth and profit and power. So Hiranyakashipu sentenced his son to death, and he told his soldiers, take Prahlad and cast him off the cliff into the sea. And Prahlad chanting the name of Hari, was led away. And they took him up to the cliff. And they said, Prahlad, this is your last choice. This is your last chance. Accept that your father is God. And Prahlad said, I accept that God is my father. And they cast him off the cliff. And he fell down, down, down into the sea, and he drowned. But as he fell, he was chanting. He was chanting the name of truth, the name of love, the name of peace. And that divine manifested within him and gave him back life. And his friends, his school friends, who had followed them, who rushed down to the seashore, and they saw Prahlad lying upon the seashore, alive. And they pulled him up and they woke him up and they said, Prahlad, you're alive. And he said, Hari is with me. Where there is Hari, there is life. Where there is Hari, there is love. And his friends began to chant the name of Hari. And they went chanting back to school. And when Hiranyakashipu heard his son was alive, he couldn't believe it. And he sent the soldiers and he said, go and take him and use your swords and kill him. And the swords went and they tried stabbing him. And Prahlad was untouched. He chanted the name of the divine and they could not touch him. And as the people in the school witnessed this, they began to chant the name of Hari. They began to manifest love within themselves. And when Hiranyakashipu heard this, he sentenced Prahlad to be crushed by an elephant. And as the elephant drew closer, Prahlad chanted the name of Hari. And the elephant heard this name, and it bowed before Prahlad. The elephant bowed before those divine vibrations, and it refused to crush Prahlad. And Hiranyakashipu heard this, and he tried boiling Prahlad in oil, and the oil turned to flowers. He tried poisoning him, the poison turned to nectar. Each and every single way, Hiranyakashipu tried to destroy Prahlad. Prahlad grew stronger because the divine manifested within him. And each and every single time the people witnessed this, rebellion grew within his kingdom. The people who had been cowed by his terrorism, the people who had been silenced by greed, the people who had been kept down by patriarchy, by racism, by colonialism, they began to chant the name of Hari. And finally, Hiranyakashipu thought, I cannot allow this to go on. I can't maintain control this way. And then his sister said to him, brother, the problem is that you are letting all of these other people try to kill Prahlad. You are not doing it yourself, but I will do it for you. She was just like her brother. She was also driven by ego and greed and power. And she said, I have a power within me. I have the victory over fire. She had meditated and she had gained this power, this yogic power over fire. Fire could not touch her. And so she said, I will take Prahlad and I will seat him within my lap and I will sit upon a pyre. And the world will see my power over fire, but Prahlad will burn. I will make sure of it, brother. And Hiranyakashipu said, my sister, thank you. Yes, do this. Do this for me. And they told all of the people, today Prahlad will burn. We will destroy him. And your ridiculous faith will be destroyed also. When the people heard that Prahlad was about to be burned, they said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? He was only 5 years old. They said, what are we going to do? And they went there to witness. They couldn't be violent. They said, Prahlad, what should we do? We will fight to protect you. Prahlad said, no fighting. Chant the name of Hari. Chant the name of Hari. And Prahlad was unafraid. And as his aunt led him into the pyre and sat him within her lap, Prahlad closed his eyes and manifested those divine vibrations within him. And the fire burned, and the fire burned, and Holika was destroyed. She was destroyed by the fires of her own greed, by the fire of her own hatred, by the fires of her own desire to wield power. And the fire rose, and the fire rose, and all of the people who had come there to witness, they could not see because the flames were too high and the smoke was too thick, and within them, they were chanting, Hari, 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 protect Prahlad. He's just a child. Protect your devotee. And as the flames died down, they saw that seated upon the ashes, alive, was Prahlad. And the people rose up in rebellion. Now no one obeyed oppression. Now no one said that they would submit to the will of this oppressor, of this tyranny. And there was chaos in the kingdom. Even the soldiers, the thugs who were enforcing his will, who were profiting off his greed, who were exploiting all of the women, even those soldiers were starting to rebel. And Hiranyakashipu thought, what am I going to do? I can't maintain control this way. And they arrested all of the people, and they dragged them all to jail. And still the people chanted. Even more rose up, not in violence, but in love. They chanted in the streets. They openly defied his laws that said, you will worship me. They said, no, we will no longer worship your greed. We will no longer worship your wealth. We will no longer worship your patriarchy and your colonialism and your racism and your capitalism. We will worship love. We will worship truth. We will worship peace. And they came together within the streets, and more of them were jailed. And Prahlad was thrown into a dungeon. And it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. And finally, Hiranyakashipu summoned his son to court. He dragged him there in chains. And he said, Prahlad, where is your divine? Where is he? If you say that you believe in him, I'm God. I'm right here. There's proof that I exist. Where is your divine? Prahlad said, he is within each and every single one of us. When we love, when we stand up for truth, when we protect each other, when we show compassion, that is the divine. He is present everywhere, within everything. And Hiranyakashipu said, within everything? Is he within this pillar right here? And Prahlad said, absolutely. He is within each and every single atom in this world. This earth is sacred because he is here. And Hiranyakashipu said, I will smash this pillar and prove that he doesn't exist, and I am the only God here. And all of the people who had been brought there in chains, all of the people who were there, they manifested the divine within them. Each of them, from their love and their peace and their compassion and their truth, they manifested the divine. And when he smashed that pillar, it shook the foundations of the earth. And from those foundations, the divine arose. And he toppled that king. He toppled that demon. And the people were free. The people were freed. This is the story of Prahlad. This is the story of civil disobedience. When Gandhi used the idea of civil disobedience, he didn't make up that idea. He took it from the ancient wisdom of India. He took it from the indigenous wisdom of his people that said the way to defeat oppression and the way to defeat tyranny is to disobey unjust laws, is to rise up together in unity and say, we will not tolerate your greed anymore. We value life. We value love. This earth is sacred because the divine is here. Mother Earth is sacred because the divine is here. And the divine is within all of us. That was Gandhi's Satyagraha movement. That was the movement that toppled the British Empire. That was the movement of the civil rights era. And that is the movement that we must have today, facing this climate crisis. The question is, do we have the courage the way Prahlad had courage? Do we have the will to oppose oppression? Do we have the strength to stand up against tyranny? And I believe that we do. I believe that we do. I believe that our courage and our will and our strength can surprise even us. I believe that the divine is in each and every single one of us. And when we rise up together and we love each other and we take care of each other and we show compassion towards each other and we seek the truth, I believe that that divine will manifest within us. I believe it. Do you believe it? Do we believe it? Yes. Are we ready? Yes. Let us do it. Let's rise up. Let's break free. Let's break these bonds of oppression that are destroying this world, that are oppressing Mother Earth, that are destroying the very foundations of life. Let us rise up. Let us manifest that divine. Let us protect each other. Thank you.